Are you struggling to get your data into Power BI? Well, you're not alone. Whether you're dealing with Excel spreadsheets, SQL databases, or online services, importing data can feel like navigating a maze. But what if you could master this process effortlessly and set the stage for powerful, insightful dashboards? In today's video, we're breaking down the step-by-step methods to importing data into Power BI seamlessly, from connecting to diverse data sources to ensuring your data is clean and ready for analysis. We'll equip you with the tools that you need to transform your raw information into meaningful visualizations. Say goodbye to data import headaches and unlock the full potential of your business intelligence journey. Okay, so here we have a blank Power BI desktop. There's no data in here at the moment. What we're going to do in today's video is step through the various different ways that we can get data into Power BI. Now, I will try to keep this video kind of shortish, so we don't go into a lot of detail. I'm going to go through the most common ways that you're going to be looking to try to import data into Power BI. And if you do have other kind of issues or kind of want to know a little bit more information about other ways of connecting data, then let me know in the comments below, and I will try to get a follow-up video sorted. Okay, so we're going to start at the low end, the easy kind of entry-level stuff. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually get some data and put it in here. So the easiest way is actually go ahead and enter data manually. So you can click into this enter data button. And here you can see you can create a table, right? If I go over to Excel where I've got some information right here, if I go ahead and copy this using right-click copy or alternatively Control C, if I do that and bring this over to our create table, I can just click here and go ahead and use Control V to paste it in. Okay, we have headers that are automatically identified. We can add new columns, new rows as we want. We can also give this a name. So I'm going to say copy paste data, okay, as our data source here. Okay, so straight off the bat, we have a table. We can go ahead and now just load this into our report. Okay, so a very easy way to basically go ahead and copy paste data out of Excel and dump it directly into your Power BI desktop. This now means that you can create great visuals based on that data, as you can kind of see all that data now loaded in. But sometimes you don't want to do that. Maybe that's not the most kind of ideal way of handling your data. Okay, so in which case we should probably look at how we can essentially do this differently. Okay, so for that, the next thing to do is actually loading an Excel document, right? If I go ahead and click here where it says Excel workbook, if I give that a click, well, we can go and import data directly from our Excel workbook without having to do copy and paste. Now, in our example here, we actually have two tabs within our document. One is a raw, basically just a data dump of just raw text and numbers. The other one is a structured table. And then, of course, we can see the table actually coming through here as well. So if I click on raw data, it will identify the data that's inside that Excel document, even if it's in its most rawest form. Okay, and here we could transform this, we can manipulate it if we want to, or we can go ahead and load this in. So I'm going to go ahead and load, and that's now going to load the raw data directly into the Excel or into Power BI directly from our Excel document. Okay, so for reference, let's go ahead and find our Excel document here. And if I load this up, I'll show you what's going on there, so you can be aware of how even under its rawest form, it is being utilized for its exact purposes. Let's go ahead and bring this in. So here you can see we have that raw data that we copied and pasted, right? We notice that we're not even using column A or even the first few rows of our data. We just started dumping it right in here. Now, this is still relatively well structured out, right? We can see that there's no breaks in our data, and it's kind of picked up on there being a start position and an end position. Okay, if you had a break in this data somewhere halfway through, let's insert some blank rows, then this is really going to be a little bit more of a challenge for Power BI to pick up on it through Power Query. Not impossible, but it's going to be a bit more of a challenge. The best way, of course, is to go ahead and structure it inside a table. Now, this table that I've got created, it doesn't matter where it is, it's always going to be recognizable as a table, and therefore it can always extract whatever data is within that table from a Power Query. Query or Power BI to be more specific. So this is the ideal method, okay, when we're talking about dragging information or grabbing information out of Excel and putting it into Power BI. So if I go ahead and close this off, bring back our Power BI desktop here, if we go ahead and use the Get Excel workbook data again, this time we'll import that document and we'll use the table, which is staff details, which is what I've called the table. Okay, and if I go ahead and load this in, well, now we can import that data. The same data, we've imported it 3 times. One of these is copy paste, which is no dynamic content. You're basically not going to be able to update it or anything like that from Excel, just copy paste. Raw data, which okay, you've imported it, you could probably change some of the names in there, but it's not well structured. And then of course you've got an Excel table which can continuously evolve and adapt over time, and because of that it will always be reflected in here when we do an update. Okay, so that's your kind of easy way to kind of deal with Excel data just on the fly, just dragging it and copy pasting it and pulling it into Power BI, all the way through to having a document that you want to import into your Power BI desktop. Okay, so now let's take a look at how we can bring data into Power BI through the Power BI service. This is usually in the form of a data flow, but there's a lot of different options. So in Power BI desktop, from our drop-down menu here, you can see that there's a few options here. If you click on more at the bottom, it does expand to show you there is a huge array of different ways that you can pull data into Power BI. Like I say, I'm not going to be going through all of these today, but you've got things like text files, CSV files, XML files, JSON files, all the way through to kind of, SharePoint folders and different folder structures, and you've got SQL database services. Even Access databases can be utilized here as well as a whole host of others. Okay, so the next, what we're going to do is we're probably going to wrap up on this video with the next part of the tutorial, which is going to be how we can create a data flow using our Excel documents that are actually inside our SharePoint folders. For that, we are going to head on over to the Power BI service. That's this one right here. Okay, so this is app.powerbi.com. You log in and you have access to everything. Now, for all clarity, I have a premium per user license, and so I can do a lot of different things. Now, some of this will be fine and you will be able to work with it regardless of your licensing. However, some of these features, like data flows, will rely on you actually having a premium per user license, which actually isn't all that bad. And so, if you're looking at doing some serious analysis and you want to kind of do some automated kind of cloud updates, then yeah, you're going to want to kind of have that. So let's go ahead and click add a new item. What we're going to look for here is a data flow Gen 1 or data flow Gen 2. Now, personally, I've always used the Gen 1s. I haven't used Gen 2s yet, so I'm just going to stick to what I know in this tutorial, but you can mess around with both of these. I imagine Gen 2 is going to have additional functionality that the Gen 1 doesn't have. But if we're going to click Gen 1 here, it's going to give us a bit of a warning. Data flow Gen 2 significantly enhances the data ingestion and transformation capabilities available in Gen 1 with the new feature such as output destinations, Copilot, fast copy for large-scale data ingestion, a new high-scale data flow transformation engine, VNet gateway support, enhanced refresh history. So I'm just going to click on, create Gen 1, but if you want some of that, fantastic, go for it. We're just going to click on Gen 1. Okay, that's going to get things rolling here, and it's going to ask us, how do we want to start creating our data flow? We want to define new tables. Do we want to link from other data flows, which is really quite powerful, by the way, when you start interlinking your data flows, but we'll talk about that probably in another video. You've got import models or attach a common data model. I just want to define new tables. I'm going to click define new tables. That's going to load us up our next set of options. So you just give it a moment. Here we go. And here we get into Power Query. Now, with this, you have the very similar kind of functions that you had within your desktop, but you have it here on the cloud. And that gives you the ability to basically refresh this, on a schedule that maybe you're not around. Maybe you can't refresh your desktop, every kind of 2 hours or so. Here in the cloud, you could potentially do that. So, and of course, you can integrate it into Power Automate and you open up your world even further. Now, what we want to do here is we want to look at a SharePoint folder to bring in lots of Excel documents. I only have one in this example, but you could bring in multiple Excel documents and basically transform them. So we're going to do that, but you could, of course, bring in Excel documents. You could bring in web APIs. You could bring in SharePoint lists. You've got other data flows. You've got Dataverse. There's so many different things you could do. For this example, we're going to focus on the SharePoint folder. Okay, in here, it's going to ask us for our SharePoint address, which we have right here. We're just going to go ahead and copy this across into our Power BI cloud area just here. I'm going to ask it to create a new connection and we're just going to click next. It's hopefully going to log me in with my correct credentials. Just give it a moment. There we go. Now in here, it's going to list out absolutely everything that we have on our folder or within our kind of directory, right? Now what we want to do is we want to narrow this down because I have a specific folder that has information in it. Okay, now if we've most recently kind of created a document, it should appear at the top of the list. What we're going to do is we're going to click on transform data, and that's going to start the transformation process because we're going to have to filter everything that's on SharePoint to exactly what we are looking for. Okay, this actually sounds worse than it is. It's actually very straightforward, and I'm going to show you the kind of tips and the tricks that I use to basically narrow things down. Let's just give it a moment to load everything up. Okay, so now that everything is loaded up in here, what do we want to do? Well, first of all, we want to see what's kind of what we're kind of looking for. The easiest way to do that is to basically use a folder path and to filter to a specific folder. Now, in my particular case, I know that the folder that I am looking for was within my documents is actually for .youtube. So that could be my starting point. If I right click on this one right here and I go to text filters and it equals this, okay, that's going to basically now filter the entire list to just what is inside that document. Then we have lots of different pieces of information in there. However, this is not the most up to date. So we need to actually run a bit of a refresh here and see if any more data will come on through. Since it hasn't, we are going to roll this back just a little bit, go and close this one off, and we're going to bring this back up into view. So in here, we are going to now take a look at the date modified. Kind of in this drop down menu, we're going to put this into descending order. That means our most recent documents are going to be at the top of the list. And here we can see the import data to Power BI desktop. So since I couldn't find what I was looking for through the folder structure, I went ahead and changed it to the date modified. So from here, this is the file that I want to import, but I want everything inside that folder. So what I can do is I can navigate all the way over to here where you can see that it is basically 4.youtube/video documents/Excel. So in here, I can go ahead, text filters. This time I'm going to say contains this, so it's not limiting. That's going to now bring back everything that is within that particular folder. Now, in this particular case, it is just the one document, but if I had multiple documents, they would all be listed here. Now we've done this, I can go ahead and remove that step that says sorted rows because it's an additional step that actually isn't really required because all we needed was to filter our entire list down to what we're looking for, which we've done here through the folder path. Now we have these two arrows pointing down. This is basically saying that I want all of the information from all of the files in there. I'm going to give that a click and it's going to basically go ahead and pull all that information together. Give that a moment and it should start to load up the information for us to edit. Okay, so now we have a combine files area. So we can see that we only have one file in here, but there are three different sets of parameters to choose from. Okay, we have staff details, which is the actual raw, structured table data that we have inside there. We have our sheets, which actually is just raw information. You can see here that it's even picked up on those blank rows that we added. And then of course we've got the table, the table tab itself. Again, it looks more structured. So for us, the parameter that we're using is basically what structure do we want to apply to all of the files inside that folder. Okay, so we're going to use the staff details table because that is the correct structure that I want to apply to all the files should they all be in the same kind of pattern. Okay, I can go ahead and click OK on this and it's going to start transforming all the files inside that SharePoint folder into that same kind of query, and it should start to actually pull everything together into one document for you. Okay, so here we can see that we have the source name. Okay, so this is the Excel document that's being pulled in, and we only have one document here, but if we had two, you would have different source names for different pieces of information, and you have a record or a row for every single piece. You then, of course, have your IDs, your names, your departments, and your start dates. And Power BI is going to try and basically ascertain what fields are numbers, what fields are text, and what ones are dates, and so forth, right? And you can see here that it's tried to assign this right in this this table right here in this transformation, right? So ID is int64 type, you've got name being type text, department is type text, and start date is type date. Okay, now that's fantastic. We can go ahead and modify this a little bit more. We don't want to bring into our Excel document, our Power BI desktop, we don't necessarily want to bring in the source name, but in this example, I'll go ahead and leave it. If we didn't, we could right click this and we could remove the column from here. So we could remove the column that we've right clicked on. We could also go ahead and remove any errors, which is pretty much good practice to kind of do anyway. But it normally does also do that for you automatically if you forget anyway. So with all that being done, we can give our query a name, and we're just going to call this staff data. Okay. And what I'll do is say it's a flow as well. And I'll go ahead and save and close. Okay, so now that's going to go ahead and verify everything. Let me just make sure that's saving. Verify everything, it will compute it, and then that is done, right? You now have a data flow for every single Excel file that you put into a SharePoint folder. Now from here, you can go ahead and do some custom work, such as schedule it. You could even use Power Automate to schedule it if something else happens. You could basically ask it to update this data flow based on different criteria. That you can go down a few fair different routes at this point in time. Let's just give this a load and see what it comes up with. So it's asking us to save the data flow. This is going to be staff data. Okay, I could give it a description. I'm not going to, but you can get the idea. And that's going to basically save that, and we'll have our data flow right here. It will ask you to either schedule a refresh or to refresh it now. If I go ahead and just click on the schedule, it's going to basically bring up this screen right here. You can see your refresh. You can turn on the refresh schedule. It could be daily, it could be weekly. You could add times during the day that this happens. So I'm going to add in 3 here, 1 a.m. We might as well do, let's say 7 a.m. and then we'll do 1 p.m. like that. So you can see every 6 hours, right, it's going to get an update. You could do something like that. And if it fails, you could also email the owner. So that would email me, or you could email a specific contact. Okay, great way to do that. We'll just go ahead and click save on it. And that is now basically scheduling the data flow. If we come back to my premium area here, we can go ahead and give this a quick refresh. It's going to refresh all of that data, and you can see it's happening right here. And it also tells you when the next refresh is going to be. Like I say, you can schedule this in Power BI's service or use Power Automate to refresh this on the back of something else. So let's say, for example, you've got a whole host of different data flows and you want them to update one after the other. Well, Power Automate can do that for you. When one updates, you can then say, when that finishes, update the next one, and so forth and so forth. I've done this on numerous occasions. If you're bringing in lots of sales data across multiple areas and you want to kind of amalgamate it together, but you don't want them all to run simultaneously for whatever reason, then that is a great way of doing it. Now we have this, we can come back to our Power BI desktop. What we can do is we can navigate over to Get Data. From here, we can go and click Data Flows. From the Data Flows, this will pop up this little dialog box here. You may need to log in. If we go ahead and go into Workspaces, go to Premium, and then down here we have my staff data. We can click into that, and we have the staff data flow, which is the one table within our data flow. You can have multiple tables within your data flow, by the way, so you can have them all listed out here. Once you're happy with it, we can go ahead and load it in, and that's going to load data from our data flow directly into our Power BI desktop. The beauty of this is that we can have this continuously updating in the background, so that when we come to our desktop and we want to analyze information, it's kind of good to go. Okay, and here on the right hand side, you can see the evolution of what we've done in today's video. Copy and pasted data in, used raw Excel data, used structured Excel data, and then used that Excel data in a Power BI data flow that is basically gathering all of the all the files from a specific SharePoint folder. This is a super powerful way to basically manage your data and bring it into Power BI so that you can analyze it and create all the visuals that you need. But of course, guys, in this video, it has been a little bit on the easier side than more on the complex side. So let me know in the comments down below if you're looking for something a little bit more specific, whether that's SQL, Dataverse, or something totally different that I haven't thought about. Let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I'll do a follow-up on how to get that data into Power BI. If you found this somewhat helpful, informative, and useful in any way, smash that like button, guys. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, check that video out right there. It's one you don't want to miss.